So I'm going to be streaming later today, but I wanted to give you guys the top 5 best loadouts in Warzone 2. Now, these loadouts are just going to be really entertaining. They're going to really help you out, and they're going to be for anybody. So anybody's going to hop on, use these loadouts, and actually have a good time. Now, you guys see I have a ton of weapons, but only a few of these actually make it to the top 5. Now, how I categorize these are basically loadouts that anybody can use and absolutely slay with. They're the meta weapons. They're weapons that literally have low recoil, and they can be used in basically any situation. So that's how I'm describing these, and this is how we're going to do it. We're going to start out with the RPK, and this one is actually going to be probably the least effective one. So this is going to shock some people because the RPK is one of the strongest weapons in Warzone 2, but in my personal opinion, some of these class setups are actually way better than the RPK. So we're starting out with the Polar Fire S, and we're increasing the bullet velocity by 0.32 inches. We're also increasing the recoil smoothness by 0.32 ounces. This increases the sound suppression, bullet velocity, damage range, and recoil smoothness at the cost of aim down sight speed and aiming stability. Moving on to the TAC-597 barrel. This increases the damage range, hip fire accuracy, movement speed, and bullet velocity at the cost of hip recoil control, aim down sight speed, and recoil control. You're not even going to notice that though because of the tuning. So I increased the damage range by 0.26 inches and the recoil steadiness by 0.27 pounds. I also put on the aim op v4. This sight right here is magical, and it basically makes it so it has no recoil in the first place. I put the far eye position to 1.65 inches on the negative side. Put on the Demo X2 grip. This increases the recoil control at the cost of aiming stability. I increased the recoil steadiness by 0.74 ounces, and I put on high velocity. This increases the bullet velocity and decreases the damage range. So I maxed out the bullet velocity, increased the damage range by 0.43 Gs. The result is something beautiful. So we're going to let these targets line up and check this out. Literally very little effort, and it just absolutely melts from any distance. Like I'm barely holding down my thumbstick, as you guys see. This is just a very low recoil weapon that anybody can use. And obviously if you're mounted or something like that, it's just going to get even easier. So if there's any weapon you want to use, this is definitely one of them, just considering how lethal this is. So like I said, if you want an amazing weapon to start out with in this top 5 category, the RPK is the first option. But we're going to move on to another weapon, and that is going to be the TAC-56. Now, as I said, as these things go down, we're actually going to get even stronger weapons. The only downside is they may be a little bit harder to use. Now, the TAC-56 is the no recoil build. I put on the Harbinger D20, increased the bullet velocity by 0.81 inches, increased the recoil smoothness by 0.56 ounces, and this increases the sound suppression, bullet velocity, damage range, and recoil smoothness at the cost of aim down sight speed, aiming stability, and aim walking speed. Now put on the 17.5 Tundra Pro barrel, and this helps with the damage range, hip fire accuracy, and bullet velocity at the cost of aim down sight speed and hip recoil control. Now I maxed out the damage range and increased the recoil steadiness by 0.35 pounds. I put on the FSS combat grip. This helps the recoil control at the cost of aiming stability. So I increased the aiming out stability by 0.35 inches and the recoil steadiness by 0.55 ounces. I put on a 60 round mag. If you want better movement and aim down speed, sprint to fire speed, and reload quickness, then use the 40 round. And then last but not least, I put on the high velocity rounds. I maxed out the bullet velocity and increased the damage range by 0.61 Gs. This increases the bullet velocity and decreases the damage range. That's why I maxed out the damage range, basically. The result is this beautiful thing right here. Such low recoil, you don't even really notice the recoil. Like, that's why I called it the recoil build, just because, check this out. Like, even at long range, you don't really notice it. So, in my opinion, I don't really suggest using a different build, just because this is the strongest build with the least amount of recoil. Try it out for yourself and you'll absolutely love it. But we're going to move on to this bad boy, the Fennec 45. The Fennec 45 is undoubtedly still the strongest SMG, but there is another SMG that's just as nasty. We're going to start out with this though. So we're putting on the ZLR 16.5 ignition barrel. This increases the damage range, bullet velocity, hip fire accuracy, and recoil control at the cost of aim down sight speed, hip recoil control, and movement speed. Now, I increased the damage range by 0.25 inches and the recoil steadiness by 0.50 pounds. This thing right here makes it so there's no smoke when you're shooting your gun. I put on the VLK Laser 7 MW. This helps to aim down sight speed, aiming stability, and sprint to fire speed at the cost of laser being visible in ADS. So just be careful when you're ADSing like corners or pre-firing the enemy. They're going to see that laser. Put on the Agile Assault 7 stock. This helps sprint speed, aim walking speed, crouch movement speed, and aim down sight speed at the cost of aiming stability and recoil control. I maxed out the aiming idle stability at 2.40 inches and decreased the aim down sight speed, decrease the weight to increase the aim down sight speed by negative 2.06. You're not going to notice the decrease in recoil. Honestly, this thing is low recoil in the first place, but I put on the Fennec rubber grip to increase sprint to fire speed and aim down sight speed at the cost of recoil control and increase the recoil steadiness by 0.42 ounces. Last but not least, I put on the Fennec Mag 45 and show you how amazing this thing is. Like I said, you're not even going to notice the recoil, honestly. Like short to mid range, you're not going to notice it. Long range is the only thing where you're going to have to burst fire, just because obviously it's not going to be ideal for you to be in a situation where you have to continuously fire at long range. This is the outcome of trying to fire long range. I mean, it's not bad, but in my opinion, you're better off just trying to use something like a burst fire method. That's just my opinion though. So if you're going to use this, if you're in a long range gunfight, try to stick to burst firing. It's just going to be better off for you. Now, there's a few other weapons I want to show you guys, but in my opinion, I want to let you guys know what's the most lethal weapon ahead of time. The most lethal weapon is the TAC-V. Now, I just had to get you guys excited because it's the final weapon, but before we do that, I'm going to show you guys the Mini-Bakk. The Mini-Bakk is actually incredible in regards to having 64 rounds. This thing is basically the bullfrog, and it's incredible just because you can take out an entire team without having to reload. Like, I think that is amazing. So, start at the X10RR40 for the sound suppression, bullet velocity, damage range, and recoil smoothness at the cost of aiming down sight speed and aiming stability. Now, maxed out the bullet velocity, increased the recoil smoothness by 0.45 ounces. Then I move on to the Bakk 9 279mm barrel. Now, I increased the damage range, well, I actually maxed it out, and maxed out the aim walking speed, which is different than the recoil steadiness, which some people would expect. I wanted to have good mobility because this already had low recoil as it is. So, this has damage range, hip fire accuracy, and bullet velocity at the cost of aim down sight speed and hip recoil control. Put on the Schläger Peck box to increase the aim down sight speed. Put on the Markif R7 stock to increase the crouch movement speed, sprint speed, and aim down sight speed at the cost of recoil control. I maxed out the aiming out stability and increased the aim down sight speed by negative 1.94 ounces. Next, I put on the True TAC grip for sprint to fire speed and aim down sight speed at cost of recoil control, and I increased the recoil steadiness by 0.52 ounces. Now, I'll show you guys how amazing this is in the firing range. Short to medium range is really when you want to keep this. Like short to medium range, that's where you're going to hit your targets. Long range, you're really going to have to burst fire because it's going to be really hard hitting the targets long range. So just stick to that short to medium range. That's the sweet spot, and try your best to avoid the long range gunfight. And last but not least, like I said, is the TAC-V. The TAC-V is literally a freak of nature. This thing is so good, and so many people need to use this weapon because most likely the RPK is going to get nerfed, and if this gets nerfed, it's not even going to be that noticeable. This damage is so high and it's so powerful, so this low recoil build is going to be ideal for you. We're going to start at the Custovia DX90 for the muzzle. It increases the sound suppression, bullet velocity, recoil smoothness, and recoil control at the cost of aim down sight speed, aim walking speed, and aiming stability. Now, I increased the bullet velocity by 0.84 inches and the recoil smoothness by 0.90 ounces. Put on the 18-inch precision 6 barrel, increases the damage range, hip fire accuracy, and bullet velocity at the cost of aim down sight speed and hip recoil control. I maxed out the damage range and increased the recoil steadiness by 0.39 pounds. Put on the aim op V4, put the eye position to far, maxed all the way out. Put on the 50-round drum, and then put on the F-TAC Ripper 56 for aiming out stability, hip fire accuracy, and recoil stabilization. At the cost of aim down sight speed and walking speed, I increased the aiming idle stability of 0.32 inches, and the recoil steadiness I maxed out. Recoil stabilization. Show you guys the outcome. This thing is so powerful, and you don't even have to aim for the head. Watch this. You can aim for the body and absolutely decimate just for how powerful this is. This is one of the strongest weapons in the game right now, and if people used it to its full ability, they would absolutely do amazing. So give it a try yourself, and let me know in the comment section what you use.